Hello, everybody, and welcome to another just hideous episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I will be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Phil Tippett's Mad God. Let this forever be known as the week that everyone started pretending they knew who Phil Tippett was.
Oh boy.
I am sure we will Google it. That's not a slight John against Phil Tippett. That's a knock against like film Twitter people who are like, oh, this is Phil Tippett's master. He's working on, did you know he's been working on this for 40 years? I did because the trailer told me, but that's the only reason why. He seems like a lovely gentleman with a lot of dark thoughts in his head, but I did not know who he was before this.
He raised a bunch of money on Kickstarter. So like there were definitely nerds like who have the receipts on being there.
Says you.
Yeah.
Says you, John. Joining me.
He touched a lot of deep nerdy stuff like Star Wars and RoboCop, and I don't know if you know this, but people really like Star Wars.
I mean, I believe you. Joining us tonight, we're just dropping like flies over here. First up with his, what is this now? Second COVID bout here. Mm-hmm. Please welcome John to the show.
This disease ain't gonna get me, Eric.
This was back in like February when we all like one by one went down over the course of like a month. Is this gonna happen again?
Well, I mean, it is happening. It's not.
Here's the difference this time. Here's the difference. I was already isolating. I didn't really care enough to test myself more than once because I was like, whatever.
Eric, it's a big day though. It's the first show I'm recording at my vacation home, my second home.
Your second home? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fancy.
So,
Does your second house have a doorman, though? That's the question.
No, I have to open the door myself. It's confusing.
How the mighty have fallen.
John demands that his doorman from New York City drives upstate to open his door for him when he arrives home.
I need to leave. Yeah, it's been tough.
Caitlin had something going on tonight. She didn't make it. Casey now also has COVID, so he's out. Joining us in our set, it's been a few weeks here. We're very glad to have them back in the show, both from the Zombie Girls. Please welcome Rachel.
Survival of the fittest, or the most isolated, with the fewest friends.
Hey, that makes you valuable to us, Rachel.
There you go.
And please welcome Ariel to the show.
Hi.
I'm glad you guys had time to join us this week to review this just absolutely hideously disgusting movie.
Thanks for having us.
You're
Had
welcome.
you watched it before? Had you checked it out ahead of time? Like, there were people who were very hyped for this movie. I mean, as much as Eric was, giving it a hard time.
It was like on my radar, but I was like, I'll get to it never.
I'm not giving it a hard time at all. But it's disgusting. Like, it's vile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean we're a horror podcast, John. We delight in the darker things in life,
No, totally true. I may have mentioned this last week, but John Shelton listed this on his top 10 movies of 2021.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he did. We'll have to. I'm going to talk to you about that later.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
Oh, is the list opening tonight? That's exciting.
Let's do it. Let's take a quick break so that we can review Mad God.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
No real segue tonight for word of the day. I would just like both Ariel and Rachel to review John's haircuts. John, can you take your hat off, please?
It's
terrible.
It's a little gross right now.
It's terrible.
I give
So
it
you're
10 out of
you're
10
allowed.
flaps.
Flapping in the wind.
Oh, I have all of the flaps.
I miss the long golden locks, but it looks pretty good.
Something about this particular length gives me like 90s Laxpro vibes.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's like a Skeet Ulrich thing that's happening, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It works.
Mhm.
I think John
like
might
Skeet,
be able to
right?
pull off any length, I think is what we're learning.
John, could you
He just has nice hair.
John,
You
could
know?
you
Thank you.
John, could you vamp for us and say we all go a little mad sometimes?
No.
You sure? Okay. Maybe something from As Good as It Gets. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, I forgot he's in that.
He sure
A
is.
little craft, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
John, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, zoetrope. That's Zoetrope.
Is that
Zoetrope.
is that a fancy word for butthole monster?
You know what you know what this is. Don't give me a hard time. The zoetrope, a 19th century optical toy consisting of a cylinder with a series of pictures on the inner surface that, when viewed through slits with the cylinder rotating, give the impression of continuous motion.
I knew what that is. I couldn't have pulled that name for you. So thank you.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, so the zoa is Greek for life, and tropos means turning. Zoetrope. So this is it's like the precursor to all modern animation, and stop motion, of which Mad God is a magnum opus, one could say. Is
everyone can
kind of
stop doing this
pinnacle.
because it's over. this guy finished the book. I love it. Everything
no,
I know
not the
about.
Wallace and Gromit guy.
Okay, that's fair. Well, he's grandfathered in. That's fine. Everything I know about zoetropes, John, I learned from Boardwalk Empire, which isn't much.
Oh,
Just that they were around.
I've never watched it.
And by that I mean a character looks at one a couple times throughout the series. And I was
Everything
like,
I know about zoetropes just happened in the last 3 minutes.
listen, I do in my nonsense communications degree that I got, I do remember learning about this. But
Yeah, I feel like
that
any,
was
like,
20 years
film
ago,
class,
John.
They'll like bring one out and be like, "Did you know?" And you're like, "All right."
Yeah, I was in. I'm sure it was in some like Com 101 bullshit or something like that.
Yeah. Sounds
John,
right.
John, what do we know about who is Phil Tippett and what is what is Mad God? And I don't care if you don't know, make it up. We're not here for facts.
I feel like Rachel was prepping a little bit,
Oh,
so I
God,
feel like
no.
I want to open. I mean,
Rachel,
like,
Rachel,
I
who's
read a
Phil
little about
Tippett? Somebody...
I did read a little bit about this. So I mean, Phil Tippett, as we discussed, like he worked on a ton of, canonical or sort of like really notable films in the 80s and 90s.
Now, as what? Is he like a VFX guy?
He's an FX guy, but specializing in stop motion primarily.
Okay, so this is his like specifically his jam, which makes sense.
So, and like you run down the list, I was reading some of this on Wikipedia, which has a ridiculously long article on stop motion. If you are curious,
Nice.
Like it's like almost a book. I didn't read the whole thing. I was
From
kind of
A to
skimming.
zoetrope.
So
From human, what is it? What is Simpsons to chimpanzee?
The last film that was released commercially that had stop motion of this variety, and I think that Phil Tippett worked on, was Coneheads, 1993.
Interesting.
So remember the monster with the Garthunk, I think he's called, when he has to narfle the Garthunk?
I don't think
you guys
I've
have not seen
I don't think
Coneheads.
I've ever seen
Yeah.
Coneheads all the way through. I feel like I've
Yeah.
never seen it all the way through.
Yeah.
I love Coneheads. It's a wonderful film. When he has to like fight that like giant that animal that looks like the thing from Star Wars.
The Rancor,
I think it's
which was
Star
also
Wars 2,
which was
right?
also stop motion.
Yes.
Did you
Well,
just
so he did
wait a second? Did you just say Star Wars 2?
episode 6?
I
No,
point
5.
this out for multiple reasons. First of all, that's wrong. The Rancor is from Return of the Jedi.
Is it in the
Second of
New
all, no one. It's not Star Wars 2. First.
All right, we don't
Why?
need to get into this. I know my Star Wars. I
Do
just
you?
forget which one that he had to fight that thing in. In any event, that scene in so Coneheads, 1993. Jurassic Park, Phil Tippett also worked on, and that was sort of when he like gave up on this whole dream of stop motion. So yeah, I mean, what I'd read is he started making this movie in the 80s, I believe, or maybe 90s, by himself. And then effectively like put it on the shelf because he was like, oh, no one cares about stop motion anymore. And then like people like were kind of like, hey, you should like start doing that again. And he like got volunteers and just like rando people to like make it with him over the weekend. He raised a bunch of money on Kickstarter. I don't know how much. They apparently made like the first half of the movie, give or take, via Kickstarter, and then like I guess got full funding.
Now the trailer, I swear, said like that he's been working on it for 40 years. So what does that mean? Like he's been developing the idea for that long or something? or creating the
He worked
characters?
on it in bursts throughout that time, I think. He even
Yeah.
said in an interview that he got like high school students and college students from around the Bay Area to help him at different points because a lot of it was such tedious work. There was just a ton of it to be done.
So the Kickstarter was basically to shoot whatever was left and finish putting it together?
We'll finish putting like half of it together, I think.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, when we we should talk about the plot, I guess, at some point. But
Please.
I dare you. I dare you to
No, but-
describe the plot.
So you
Well,
see,
and
there's a
it's-
bunch of
it'll-
giants, and they're all shitting through holes in their chairs, and then that gets funneled down into another giant's mouth, who seems to be really enjoying this situation.
Listen, I'm not yucking anybody's yum. All right.
so the scene where, and I mean, I don't know this, and maybe if someone read this, I believe the scene with the the surgery and like the scene immediately preceding that, to me, that like looked old. Like it was.
Mm.
If I had to guess,
That
I
looked like
believe
it could have been
those
shot by
scenes-
some 90s college students, is all I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
looked at
I-
some point almost like there was like a filter over some of the images to make it look older, but maybe they just were
Well,
old. I
there
don't
was some
know.
there was some hardcore. I bought my
Yeah.
starter grindhouse effects pack in that section in particular.
Yeah.
But I also think the like technique was less
Mhm.
polished, in
I
that
can see that.
sequence. That's
Yeah.
sort of, I guess, where I was going. In any event, all right. So let's try to do this. There's not. We should just say up front. There's not like a clear plot in this movie. There's not like there's not characters. There's not an arc necessarily. There are things happening. The first thing that happens is a guy who on Wikipedia they call the assassin. Eric, what did you call him?
I called him the Traveler.
The traveler. That's good too.
That's my
That is
my head canon. That came from nowhere but my head because that's what we
No,
watch him
that's-
do. We go on this journey with him, descending.
So he's in this like diving bell effectively. It's like an elevator that's suspended from a cord, and all we see is that it's coming out of the sky,
Not very
and it
practical.
starts to say again.
Not very practical as a mode of locomotion, but
No, yeah, it's not the fastest way to descend, certainly. But he keeps descending, and for like, I don't know, 10 minutes of the movie, it's just him going down through different layers, and then you see sort of a little snippet of what's going on at those different layers. There's like 7 layers or something. And eventually he gets to the bottom, and he comes out, and he pulls out a bomb, and he like sets this clock on the bomb, and then he's about to like, I don't know, get back in or like go away, but he gets captured. He gets
so you're
dismembered.
so this portion of the movie you're talking about is actually 30 minutes. Like it's 10
Yeah,
minutes
yeah.
of just him descending in the cage thing. Then he goes as far down as he can go through the layers. Then he gets out
Oh,
on
yeah,
foot,
I
and we
forgot.
actually see him descend more layers, sort of on foot and car and whatever, and traveling. And the whole time he's following this map that, like,
Yes.
as he clears areas, parts of the map seem to like disintegrate from the map. Then he gets captured by some kind of butthole monster, which is every monster in this world. Yeah, and then sorry to interrupt.
They all, yes.
There's a shocking amount of analingus in this movie.
I mean, this guy loves poop. What can I say? Phil Tippett loves poop. Put it on the poster.
No, it's,
You know, the
Yeah.
most disturbing part about that giant thing was to me, because I think that's in this first part of the movie. Like,
which giant thing? The
there's
one
a
that's
point
pooping
where
in the
he
chair?
sees the dudes in the chairs with the poop pipes.
Yeah.
Weirdly, the most disturbing thing to me in this whole scenario is that it was mixing all the poop together. Like, I don't know why. No, I mean, okay, like that's the most disturbing part, clearly. But it made it worse somehow that it was
There
all
were like 2
combining.
different sources of poop
Yeah.
for you.
You want a
That's
single
probably-
source.
Yeah.
is what you're
I want
saying.
farm to
Keep the
table
poop
shit.
different.
Eric, has anyone ever told you you're very bougie? Like, not everybody can afford their organic.
If I'm going to be
poop,
tortured
okay?
in hell for eternity by a poop pipe, then I have standards at least, I guess.
Oh my god.
But no, he is
So-
still around because he stops to look at this because we know they're giants or whatever in this world because we see him for like reference and he's much
Yeah.
tinier.
There's like
This is not important to the
char-
movie. Like nothing in this movie is plot. This goes by in 30 seconds, and I will never forget
Yeah.
it for the rest of my fucking life.
Never.
no,
Never.
that's fair. So he gets captured. He gets taken. This is the scene that I was.
We should
referencing
say that
earlier where he
too.
gets-
We should say that there's no there is no way to spoil this movie, so just feel free to listen on. Like,
Yeah,
they're just...
no, that's fair. He gets taken into this like operating room. This was the scene I was talking about earlier. They like start pulling stuff out of him, but like the guy is like in up to his waist, and like pulling. But eventually he pulls out like a baby demon worm thing, hands it to the nurse. Nurse walks away. She like goes on her own journey with this thing, but eventually hands it to like a very spooky medium-sized giant demon thing. I don't know. It's like, and then
A very
that thing
fancy plague doctor.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it had like the flowing, like
It had
capey,
weird limbs and
ripped up cape. I don't know.
It was making baby noises. This was about the time that I turned my TV down.
There's then like there's like a yeah.
It's rare
There's
that I
like
watch
an-
something not in my headphones, and like the second half of this movie, I watched it on my TV and it's nice out, so I had the windows open. I'm like, I gotta turn this shit down. This is psychotic.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna call CPS.
Yeah, it's in particular the baby
She does
noises.
that, babe. Well, and we should also say, like, not only is there not really plot or characters, there's no dialogue. Like, there's no. It's just music.
There's no dialogue in the
And
entire
then-
entire movie. It's worth pointing out.
Wait,
There's
there are human actors. Do they talk to each other? I
It's
couldn't remember.
gibberish. It's all like garbled.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like there's
Um,
characters that kind of feel like they're talking. There's like loudspeaker announcements, but you can't. It's like the mom from Muppet Babies, basically.
Yes. This is where there's like this interlude where it flashes not back. It takes us to another area, which is we come to learn like above all this stuff, and we meet this like other scientist guy.
Yeah, I
or
couldn't
whatever
tell
the
if
hell
that
he
was
is.
a different traveler or if this was a flashback into that one's life because of the way the guy was looking through the
No.
monitor.
It was a
It's an
second.
origin story, right? Or no, it's a second
No,
one.
no.
Oh,
I
okay.
think he's sending a second traveler.
Okay, I thought it was a
And
flash.
what we're
I thought it was a
seeing
flashback.
is like and you saw he had like this army of them. Like there was like I don't know.
Mhm.
Hundreds of them up there with this guy. But there's like the one human, and then there's the like all these little traveler guys. I mean, I guess like at this point I'm like I lose track a little bit. So the second traveler starts descending. He goes on his own journey that involves like driving a jeep,
Jeep
through like a
driving.
war zone.
Mhm.
And then the baby demon worm who was with the plague doctor ends up at another creepy like laboratory where they kill the baby, they grind it into dust, they turn the dust into a metal bar, or do they
Sure
melt
do.
the baby?
I love that you're
And
like
then
It's
really
called
going.
science.
I love that
Get
you're
a big
really.
book.
I really enjoy that you're going through the minutia of this because what people who haven't seen the movie don't realize is it doesn't mean anything. Like, I mean, I'm sure it means something to Phil Tippett, but like what you're saying is not going to make sense when you finish talking.
So all right, but basically the movie ends with like this baby getting turned into a bar. The bar gets ground into like dust, and then the dust gets scattered, and that turns into like a 2001 Space Odyssey like mindfuck thing.
Some kind of
where it's
maybe
like the universe is
rebirth.
being born.
Yeah.
Yeah. The end.
Okay. I would have said scenes from hell. Period.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better than I got.
I mean,
Rachel. What'd you-
Yeah.
what'd you
I
think?
don't know. I kind of think this movie is
Listen,
fascinating.
as the smartest person here, I'm relying on you to tell me what this means.
Okay, I mean, I definitely have. One of the things I think about this movie is that it's kind of because there's no dialogue, there's no plot, there's no discernible themes, anything like that, right? It becomes almost like this moving Rorschach test.
Mm.
And so, like, whatever you take from this movie is 100% what you bring to it, like your lens,
Interesting.
which I think is really interesting, as I think we probably all have theories about what it is. I definitely have theories about what it means, but ultimately I don't know that any of them are correct because it is just like this mood piece.
Isn't that an interesting idea in a time when every piece of art seems to have a very
Yes.
well-drawn point of view
True.
that you can't miss for somebody to present something that's like, I don't know, douche, you figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know how much of this is that he started it 30 years ago or like he is a product of 30 years ago, but like even to the aesthetic, how grotesque it is, it feels much like everything is so slick and so produced and so stylized now. To see something that is just grotesque and strange, it feels out of time and fresh because it's just totally different than what we're experiencing now. But yeah, as like opaque as this was, like it grabbed a hold of my neocortex in a way that I could not let go, because it was like I was trying to constantly add meaning to everything. Like, what does this symbol mean? What is does that say larger about the story? And it never actually gave me that, and I had to like sit with it and interpret it. But I thought it was really interesting, even if there were times, especially in this middle, where it got a little bit to be a bit of an endurance challenge. Like the opening and closing acts I thought were really compelling, but that middle part is a little baggy for me. But
There's
yeah,
a
I don't
little
know. I thought
shaky
this was
part when we're
interesting.
with the doctors. I feel like because you're hardcore changing gears, and the first 30
Mhm.
minutes are like riveting. Like you can't take your eyes off of it. Yeah, it
And
d-
it's where it's the most live action as opposed to stop motion, and I think
I
it
love
feels a
that.
little bit like a cheat in that
See, I
part.
kind of like
Yeah.
it. I sort of like those moments. Like
Mm.
it gives it this Adult Swim kind of vibe. If that makes
Yes.
sense. Like
Like
it feels
it
very
was
mixed
kind of like
medium. Yeah.
Eon Fluxy, like that kind of
this is this
grimy,
movie.
seedy
Okay,
feeling.
this movie. Here's what this movie is. It is Hellraiser 2 meets Pee Wee's Playhouse meets Adult Swim.
Oh. Yeah, the Hellraiser 2. I can see that for sure. Yeah, definitely. We need Leviathan to show up and just like float around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. And I think there's some stop motion in Hellraiser 2 as well.
Yeah.
Ariel, what'd you think?
Yeah, so this is, like Rachel was saying, really interesting. There are a lot of parts of this movie that I loved, but I'm not sure I liked it. I don't know if
Mhm.
that makes sense, but I love stop motion animation. If you can give me stop motion animation and puppetry over CGI, I will take that any day. I grew up in a household where, Ray Harryhausen stuff was playing all the time. So like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and like, I don't know, Jason and the Argonauts, I watched a million times over. So I love that stuff. And this movie is grotesque and disturbing, but it's also kind of beautiful the way it's all put together. And it is just so chock full of detail. Like every corner of the screen is filled with a million things. There's so much detail in this. I feel like you could watch this movie over and over again and see new stuff each time because of that. It was challenging for me towards the middle just because there is a lack of character, plot, dialogue, that at a certain point I was like, what am I doing here exactly?
Now, when you say that, do you mean with your life?
Always.
Yeah.
And again,
It's
I
a
say,
constant question.
again, I say, you're welcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it lost me a little bit. And then by the time we get to the surgery scenes, I was all in again, where I was like, oh, this is fascinating.
That's
Who is
really
this
interesting.
troll guy?
That's
that we
really
get to?
interesting. So that first act kind of lost you, and the scenes Rachel and I are talking about actually kind of brought you back.
Yeah, because there's this piece in the middle. There's like maybe 15 or 20 minutes in the middle of the movie towards the end of the first act that I was sort of like, I get it, but like let's move on now, kind of, if that makes sense.
If you've seen one poop-eating monster, you've seen them all.
I mean,
keep it moving.
How many buttholes
but
must I endure?
But again, it's like the visuals are so arresting, so interesting that I kept wanting to look at it, even if my mind was starting to wander sometimes. And, we'll definitely, I'm sure, talk about what it means, but that's another part that kind of keeps you watching, is like trying to figure out what this is all about.
Somebody potentially spent weeks of their life lovingly crafting monster buttholes, and I kind of love that about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is you can tell that this was made with a lot of care and a lot of love, and somebody who just loves this genre and wanted to make stop motion. And there's something really beautiful and artistic about that. And so I appreciate on that level too,
Yeah, I mean, that degree of detail, you would have to be very anal retentive.
Nice. See, your jokes are always more sophisticated than mine. I'm just like, butthole. John.
I've always been told I have very sophisticated butthole jokes.
John, what did your brain make of this through the COVID haze?
Yeah, I was not in the best brain space to watch this movie, most likely. Now here's what I'd say. I think the best brain space to watch this is super duper high. Like that.
Oh
to
my
me,
God, yes.
Like
Yeah.
so.
We should make this
like,
clear
there-
though. Do not trip and watch this movie.
No,
Oh, no.
my lord.
Oh no 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 no.
Disclaimer.
You might
but,
never come back.
And like, make sure it's a good kind. Make sure you have whatever. Pick your strain wisely, is what I'm saying.
I liked Eric. I liked your comp, like the amalgamation. To me, the like other comp for this is like a laser light show that you would see. You know, like one of those types of situations. Like specifically, I've seen I think one or maybe two Pink Floyd related laser light shows,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and like the other. I mean, because we haven't talked about it, but like the music here, I don't know if it's like actual, like if it was composed for this or if he like got this music somewhere else, but like it sounds like Pink Floyd like a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So
I was on I guess I can't remember if it was Waxwork or Mondo, but I was on the website staring at the vinyl being like, do I want to buy it? And ultimately it was like, because there is a vinyl and it looks amazing. But ultimately I was
sure.
like, how much of this is this music versus like fart sound, baby fart sounds, and like what? How much ambient nightmare noise am I getting with the music on this? So I'll have to check
good
Spotify
question.
first, I guess. It was also $40, which seems a little excessive.
Well, vinyl is like it's hard to find these days. The fresh
Yeah,
vinyl.
but 40's a little steep. I mean, I buy vinyl. 40's a little steep.
So I mean, look, I'm happy to have watched this movie. It is like super interesting and like just it's not for everybody. Like this is like, and I would say ultimately, I probably didn't even love it or I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have because of the lack of like plot or characters or like it's like a fun experience, and where I inebriated and not just like COVID dazed, I might have had a better time. But
I mean, yeah, it's.
I don't know.
I was in like I had to break it up. I would have watched it all, but I had to go to sleep last night. Like, but being in slightly different headspaces like changed my perception. It's one of those things you kind of got to go in tuned, right? Because it's a very challenging movie. But I fucking love this movie. I love it. It is one of the most stunning works of creativity that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I want to just...
Are you just trying to get on the next movie poster?
No.
Like what's
I want to just... Here's my
Somebody
thing.
get
Like,
Phil Tippett on the phone.
when I see something like this, and it's interesting, Rachel, your point about maybe having been worked on for so long, maybe he's a little old. I mean, he must be a little older if he's been in the business as long as he has. Like,
Yeah,
maybe it is
he was
bringing
working on Star Wars.
but like maybe it is
Exactly.
bringing a little bit of like maybe it is bringing this material to us in a little bit of a more old school way, which in itself is a little more challenging, and like it feels like such a stark antidote to so much of what to me has felt so samey lately about the horror genre. Like even the stuff that's trying like when I see like a work of art like this, like I think I hate to overuse the word grotesque, but it's the perfect word. You know, I'm a like creative professional. I do creative stuff on the side, and like your brain has to be wired a specific. I feel like most human brains are pre-wired, right? To like if you're doing creative things, you want them to look cool or beautiful, or both. And even scary things a lot of times can like hedge towards that way, right? Like sublimely scary or really stunning but also creepy. Like this is disgusting, this shit. Like to think that somebody spent 40 years of their lives not only with this in their head and having to get it out, but just spending their time like steeped in the, because like you're talking about concepting, sculpting, creating the scenes, shooting. I mean, years and years and years of your life on this shit that is almost hard to endure in a way, not because it's bad, but because it is horrifying. It's horrifying and disgusting. And what blows my mind is like, so the first act and the third act are similar, but the first act in particular, where we're basically on a journey with the assassin. I'll just call him by the real name, John. It's fine. As he's like, first he's descending like layers, and then he's traveling through vignettes. Some of these vignettes look like they might have taken a year to make, and he walks by them in 5 seconds. And your eyes are just darting all over the screen, like trying to take in as much as you can to just like soak in the breadth of what you're seeing. And also like, I mean, you kind of give up trying to find meaning. I did anyway at some point, larger meaning, but like what is insane is the amount of movies I see, like normal movies that I literally cannot pay attention to. And I watched this thing, it's like 80 minutes without a single real word of dialogue, and I was glued to the screen. Like I could not look away from what I was seeing. It is like a staggering work of art to me in that sense. I think like John saying, it is absolutely not for everyone. And I suspect it might be 50-50, even amongst horror fans who might sit down and watch this movie and be like,
it might just be for you, but that's
no, I think like if you were to tell me it's 50-50 and 50% of people walk away hating this thing, all I could think was like, man, it would have been so cool to see this at a festival, or like with an audience of people who knew what they were getting into. I'm like, I don't want to see this with normies. Like, no thanks. But
but I don't know how anyone hates this movie. Like to your point, like the craftsmanship and like the attention. Like,
man, you have to give it up for the scope of what he's doing here, even if you're not a fan of it in the end.
Well, just to hit on it really quick, because you just were saying, like, I was getting like kind of frustrated in the first like 10 minutes because I did want to spend more time in some of the like you would go.
You're like, whoa, like shit's just flying by.
Yeah, like it was like the next layer, and like there's like giant whatever fucking mounds of dirt, or the scene that Rachel has like as your background, but with the like things that are like shoveling shit. I believe it was just other feces from other giants.
Hell muck.
And then like getting electrocuted because they were fighting with each other. Like that shit is just, it was wild.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's talk like favorite scenes. Who wants to start? I have like a million, but
I mean, one that really stood out was when all of a sudden it went from being grotesque to like beautiful. When we get into the troll section and suddenly it's like, you
mean like their little
black light poster.
They're little like
and,
they're little like in what's the word I'm looking for? Like I want to say
the maggots,
the little habitat
like,
or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, because it was such an interesting juxtaposition, right? Or all like you knew that he was capable of creating something so beautiful after seeing so much,
and it's like
grotesqueness.
And he's
really stood out.
It's like he. This sounds weird to say. He's like allowing. Wouldn't have even thought to use the word trolls, but that makes sense. Like he allows them a moment of like peace with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh god, this is not going to go well, right? No, it doesn't.
The guy just lets like the spider in or whatever. I can't.
All it does is like,
spider.
all it does in the end is serve to like, reiterate the cruelty of the universe that he's presenting to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like he revels. He seems to be reveling in the cruelty that is sort of like on display in the movie.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think that scene works so well because the first part of the movie, you're right that it's grotesque and it's disturbing and it's all like pain and torture, but it's also all a really similar color palette where it's all grays and blacks and browns. And so then all of a sudden getting this, neon, like Rachel said, black light poster kind of coloring was kind of refreshing, and it kind of woke your brain up, to see something new like that. I enjoyed that part. And I thought the troll guy was really cool.
I also really liked where you had the, I guess it was like panes of windows, and there were almost like puppets behind them.
That was really neat. Yeah, with the stabbing and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And then
yes.
it was like so, like what was actually happening behind there was so disturbing.
I love the amount. Yeah, go ahead.
But the artistic level of the creation of it, like I said this in the pre-show email, like basically, I don't think I've ever seen anything so grotesque, so like lovingly and breathtakingly rendered.
Yes,
To the point where it gets into this place. I think you're talking about like almost like an exquisiteness to it.
Those like little silhouette scenes too were like horrifying. Like the stabbing.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I liked Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I love how mixed everything is, where it feels like mixed medium art. You've got like fiber
Yes.
arts and kind of claymation stuff. There's tons of metal. There's the shadow puppets. There's live action things. All of it combined together is really interesting. It makes it even more detailed and layered. You know.
I really like the. I think it's what the shit eating monster is like creating the like little automaton.
Is he creating
like,
the little slave people? Yeah.
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 And like, so then because we spend a fair bit of time with them, and at one point I even thought he was gonna make a character out of one of them.
That's an interesting scene
that
because, like, yeah, I'm not even sure I connected the dots that's where that, but you are sort of slowly seeing small parts of a larger machine. And yeah, but it's like almost hard
Well-
to, it's almost hard to, because you never get to zoom out. So it's hard to like figure out what's happening, but it's fascinating to watch.
Well, and
you
I
get
love
the sense
like
they're making them to kill them. Like that's
Yes.
that is the
Yeah.
purpose of the machine. It's
Yeah.
just like a murder machine.
That was my favorite probably scene in the movie. It's a little more extended than some of the other vignettes. We're still with the assassin at that point. He's kind of just walking through, like observing, and it's like, yeah, like a little machine with that like injects molds with like lint from what it looks like literally, and then like presses them, and there's like a little light tube, and then they come out and they're just like brainless, like like they just kind of, and they start wandering around the environment and spreading out. And this scene is, I think, noteworthy for the slapstick in it, because literally it becomes funny. Like you're watching, there's one scene where this thing is swinging around and just like lopping off the tops of their bodies and stuff.
Okay.
And then there's another one that like pushes them off a cliff, and then they're getting pushed in front of like a train.
there's
And
a steamroller.
yeah, just like right, the steamroller, and this like character that we're following is just watching all this unfold. And then yeah, he does have, it's like funny at first, but then he does have a moment with one where you sort of see it's fear or something, I guess, as he's like going down to the next level.
Because they're like giant. This one, I couldn't tell if they were meant to be like testicles or breasts or something. Like
oh, that
the
thing.
monster.
That's
they're,
the
like, all-
butthole monster, isn't it?
Well,
Yep.
But like when it turns around, it has like these
Can
two
confirm.
bags.
It does.
It has like
They
right
look like testicles,
where
but they almost have nipples on them.
where
It's
it-
They
very
do. They have like
strange.
nipples.
yes, yeah, where it would have balls, it has giant boobs.
Why choose when you can have both?
Yeah, that's true. Best
That's
of both
multitasking.
worlds.
I believe they call those chesticles, John. I think that's the scientific term for that.
Actually, in the production Bible for the movie, just
Chesticles.
the chesticle
Like
monsters.
like an old Nintendo menu that just has like the
Yeah.
booklet that has the names of all the enemies. The chesticle
Wow.
monster. Yeah, man, that scene is extremely horrifying, to the point where like I'm almost
Yeah.
having trouble remembering other things. And so here's another thing too is we chatted a little bit in the email thread about just interpretations of the movie. I mean, again, I think your point, Rachel, about your lens, whatever lens you're bringing to it, is a very salient one. I think that like what is clear in the text of the movie is you've got a movie called, like, the title of the movie is Mad God, right? And the movie very explicitly starts with a passage from Leviticus that basically talks about God just like destroying earth and torturing everyone. And what I sort of like about the rope-a-dope of that is that it's hard to read the way they animated it, but they don't tell you what it's from, and I don't fucking know Leviticus. So like you're just reading it, and it literally seems like some cheesy, insane thing you'd start a fantasy movie with. Like this was my experience with it. And then it pops up Leviticus, and I was like, huh, I see what you did there. You didn't tell me what it was. And even though the world at first, like there's nothing really resembling Earth, there's all these like visual cues throughout the movie that make you feel like, okay, we're on Earth here, right? Like there's one level that's like piles of suitcases, and there's another one where in the back you see like the Capitol building, and I think the other one was like some like a French monument. I think I caught in the background somewhere. So in the very least, I feel like we're looking at an Earth that has been transformed into hell. For me, bringing to it, I feel like he's making some kind of statement to me, it feels like a sort of damnation of like of God in a way, right? Or of at least like I think you could go even deeper and look at like the way modern religion ignores this version of God in some way. So it's almost like, to me, if the movie, this is how I am choosing to interpret it, it's like a dare. It's like okay, like let's look at this text and read it fully literally and present it to you exact, like just in as a horrifying detail as it is, right? And like this is for large chunks of history was like very omnipresent in people's minds, like this version of what hell would look like if you didn't follow God's word or whatever, right? Now, I'm certainly bringing my own lens to it, Rachel, to your point, but that was sort of what I took away from this.
Yeah, I'm mostly on the same page with as you. I went and read it's like Leviticus chapter 26, but it's actually the version from the Torah. So I went back and I wanted to see sort of the context for it, and I do think that this is kind of the key to understanding this movie, in my opinion. And I think other people, obviously, I'm really excited to hear everybody's interpretations. But it's essentially like the first half of the chapter, which is not included in that text at the beginning, is about how to not live a cursed life according to God. And then it lays out the punishments, and the punishments are insane. Like it's a hysterical response to people doing like pretty basic shit.
Hysterical is a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that's where in my interpretation, that's where the mad God comes in. And I kind of feel like this is almost a literal interpretation of like, if you believe this is the world that a God that would believe that, or like that this would be their ethos. This is the world that they would create. And there's like references to, like, if you actually go through and read all of the punishments, there's actually kind of little tidbits that you could attach to the film, like the wars and things like that. There are symbols in the thing that, and of course I know I'm a tinfoil hatter, but to me, once I read that, it contextualized things. It didn't feel as disparate anymore.
Yeah.
It's almost like chapter and verse of that latter section kind of thematically follows the things that happen throughout the film.
It definitely feels like...
Did the Torah version have chesticles in it, or do you think that only came in at the King?
Thou shall be consumed by a chesticle monster.
It didn't make it into the... Yeah. I was like straight Deuteronomy.
For some reason, my reading the Bible voice sounds like Ted Kennedy, and I don't know why.
No, I mean look, I don't have an interpretation of this, mainly because I was very tired and not feeling great all day after watching the movie and couldn't put too many thoughts together. The way that sequence is presented, like this verse is presented, is like so specific and so like it's a very clear signal of at least like what he's trying to set up. Now, here's my complaint. I found it very difficult to read because of the font that he used.
I just said that. Yeah, that totally was hard to read.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
What? So,
John, I've missed things you've said for 15 years. It's okay. No, you're dead on. It's hard to read, but yeah.
Yeah.
It was very unclear.
If I'm honest, I got so wrapped up in what was happening in the movie that by the time it was over, I had forgotten that there was that beginning scroll.
No, it's easy. I mean, you are assaulted by so many visuals. It's extremely easy.
Yeah.
The thing that like I sort of zoned for a while on thinking about it until I got to the level with the suitcases, because that just seems like a very like post-apocalyptic Earth, like.
Right.
Know.
And because I didn't remember the Bible part of it at all, I thought it was God's punishment for like man's inhumanity to man. The fact that there were nuclear bomb kind of clouds going off, like mushroom clouds, that we had like destroyed the planet and fought each other. And this was the hell that we were left with. But I think that the way you guys are talking about it is really interesting. I also wondered too if there weren't parts of it that were kind of almost like a rumination on capitalism, that we toil away, we're tortured, and we die. Like, you're born, you work, you die.
I think that that's super interesting, because I was gonna say like I keep coming back to it, but the suitcases were really poignant imagery for me, and this is probably just me projecting more. But like to me, it's such a mundane artifact of human life to see left behind that also like you could argue represents like drudgery,
Sure.
you know?
Or like
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the movie
accumulation
feels like
possessions or baggage, like actual literal baggage. Like it's such
Yeah.
a potent, metaphor. You can really assign so much
And
to
it's
it.
almost like something about the part of the movie that it comes in, you've been like assaulted with insane visuals. It's subtle in comparison, and that made it like stand out to me, I feel like.
No, I agree. I mean, you're just like, it's kind of like being thrown in the middle of the ocean. You're just like trying to grab a raft,
Right,
know?
and like
So when you see something you recognize, you're like, hey,
you're
I know
and
you
know what that
suitcase.
to Ariel's point, like, what you're trained by movies to be searching for context clues and to put it together, and that I think might almost pull you too deep into the weeds.
Yeah.
Where you need to be, but it also is a movie that you could watch this movie 100 times and see
and
see
still
something you
stuff.
missed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because like I like a lot of silent films, so not having dialogue isn't a stretch for me. But the fact that you don't have any discernible plot and there's no character to latch onto. I mean, we keep talking about the assassin, but he's just a guy walking through. We don't see facial expressions. He doesn't have a personality,
He's
a
got, like, a
name,
mask
a
on,
character
too.
arc, a backstory. There's none of that. So I think you do have to just kind of at a certain point say okay and kind of give in to the fact that there's
Yeah.
not a plot or a character and just focus on the beauty and the art that's in front of you. It almost feels like, have you guys ever been to a museum or an art gallery where somebody did like a performance piece and they videotaped it and they just have it playing on a loop in the museum? Do you know what I mean? It kind of feels like that to a certain extent, where you just kind of like let yourself go and just watch what's in front of you.
Yeah, I would say this movie is not entertaining. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
The animation on the the assassin, his like walking animation was insane how smooth it was. Like, and they're reaching in his pocket and pulling I was like really blown away by the animation to see. I mean, we're so used to seeing stop motion in like older movies.
Yeah.
And even then, a lot of times in horror, it's a stop motion element, that is then projected onto like a real scene. So to see like a fully realized stop motion world shot on film and then transferred over to this like pristine HD, it's like mind blowing. It's really something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love the way I know we talked about mixed media, but I love the way that he plays with scale in this movie. One of my favorite aesthetic things that he does in this is he'll introduce a character and you think like you have assigned a scale to him just automatically, and then he'll juxtapose it against something else, and you're like, oh no, that is giant,
And
or
then
oh
it
no, that's
changes,
tiny. It's really interesting. It like kind of keeps you on your back foot all the time. You know what I mean? It's a little off-putting, but in a way that is compelling.
It's funny. One genuine, like, I sort of just allowed myself to let go at some point. But the one moment, like, I genuinely was disappointed when the assassin gets caught by that monster. That was sort of the point in the movie, and I think the surgery scene where I had to, that was the moment where I wrestled with and then let go of the fact, like, there's not going to be any resolution here. Like, because you watch him travel for so far. You're like invested in like, what's his mission? Like, what are we looking for? And then he's just on the operating table getting torn apart. And you're like, well, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it does almost present itself like it's going to be some sort of like Odyssey, like classical Odyssey kind of story. And then it's like, nope, no hero's journey for you. Here's somebody licking a butthole. Have a good time.
I did like the effect with the surgeons where the jerky faces, like the kind of flashing faces. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think that's the original scene. I think that
could be
that animation.
I like the amount of people here in this movie who look through like a telescope and then for some reason see like a TV screen and then just watch a scene and then just pull away. And then we just that's like where I feel like my like Pee-wee's Big
Playhouse.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the Penny cartoon to start.
Yeah, there was all kinds of because that people forget, but that show had all kinds of weird claymation shit in it.
Oh yeah,
it did. You're bringing it back. I'm liking this movie more. The more we talk about it, the more I find that I'm liking it.
The more I'm like, is Pee-wee's Playhouse streaming somewhere? Because I need that in my life.
Right?
That was legit.
Gotta be.
Random side. So they would play Pee-wee's Playhouse at the end of the Saturday morning like cartoon block. I think on ABC, right? It was what I
Come on,
waited.
Tubi, come through.
I waited for this shit all week, and it was like the highlight of the Saturday morning. It was the last show, and then at the end, you remember he like would get on his scooter or his bike or whatever, and like that was the credits, and I was just like, that always bummed me out because like then it was over.
Aw.
Saturday morning was over.
I need more
Yeah.
Cowboy Carl in my life. Or Curtis, Cowboy Curtis.
Cowboy Curtis is nice. The king of cartoons.
Missy Vaughn is a fashion icon. Yeah, she got me young, obviously.
I always
It
felt
looks like it's not streaming for free. I think you might have to buy it. Yeah.
Bummer.
Well, I guess it's good you didn't buy that record.
I'm sure
No money.
There you go.
I'm sure I know a guy who can help me out.
That's true.
Anything else you guys need to cleanse your souls of before we wrap this review up?
I wish we'd gotten more of those witches. They were really cool, and they were only in like 1 or 2 scenes really quickly, and they looked neat.
Witches.
The like sewing witches, you know?
Oh yeah. They're like under the table or something.
Yes, and they hand
Yeah,
in the
for
thing
part
when
of
it's
it.
done. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I do remember that.
I just thought they were really cool looking. I don't know. There were neat parts in this. I did not care for the guy with the long nails and toenails at all.
No,
Oh God, there's so much in this that as you're saying this, I'm like coming
know.
back to me like I had a
I
short
forgot.
memory or something, and you guys are like hypnotizing it out of me.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm having like a satanic panic, but make it Mad
Well,
God, right?
Because it's essentially a collection of vignettes. I mean, I think you can feel in some ways the fact that this was worked on for over 30 years.
it's like
you know, that it's
75.
like these little pieces that he put together.
It's like 75
Yeah.
short movies.
Yeah,
put it into one.
exactly.
Would you recommend this movie, Rachel?
You know what? I think I would. I would say for people who I might say watch it almost in chapters, because I don't know that everybody has the attention span for it. But I think it is such a masterpiece, like technically, that if you're a horror fan, you need to see this.
Mm-hmm. Rachel.
I'm Rachel.
Oh God, Rachel. I'm just kidding. Ariel.
Yeah, you know, when I first got done with watching it, I wasn't sure if I would have recommended it to anybody, but the more that I've lived with it and the more I've thought about it, I already have a list going of people that I think should watch it. So you know what you're in for, but yeah, I would say
Mhm.
watch it.
John.
I would say you should probably watch Coneheads, then Star Wars 2.
Research.
And then
Star Wars
you
2.
watch- God,
Yes, watch the
No,
Clone Wars.
yeah. I will recommend it. Yes.
Sorry, Attack of the Clones. No, I did.
I was gonna let it
Fucked it
slide.
up. Yeah. Normally, lately, I've been all about the qualifiers, but I'm not doing that here, John. I'm gonna say yes, you should watch it, and if you don't like it, I'm gonna preemptively tell you that I don't care. So please don't tell me. Thank you. Don't come at me when you watch it. Is what I'm saying. Anytime I'm like
like
over the
that's a
top about
blanket.
something, people are always like, "You like hype this movie out." No, I don't. Listen, I'm not here for that shit. So don't give it to me. I do not. I do not receive
Set
that.
those boundaries.
Is what I'm telling
yeah.
you. Thank you. All right, let's do it. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Somewhere in deepest space, all hell is breaking loose.
They cut the power.
How could they cut the power, man? They're animals.
Get them out of there!
Aliens. This time, it's war. Aliens, the new movie. Rated R.
This is Diane Franklin from Better Off Dead with Bloody Good Horror.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
I mean, I would say, like, especially don't fall asleep if there's a chesticle monster around.
Yeah.
You know?
Good advice.
It's just good. Thank
Sound
you. Thank you,
advice.
Ariel. It's just good life advice. John, talk to me about this movie and top 10 lists. Because this is this movie's wide release. And
yes,
I am told you allowed Shelton to put on his list last year.
You know, Eric, I only have so much energy for policing people's lists.
But if you don't let me put it on this year, you and I are going to have a problem, I think is what I'm saying.
All right. Well, we can cross that bridge, brother, when we get there.
No,
you know? Don't
John,
worry.
you know I make my list as we go.
I know. You can put it on there, and we'll figure it out.
Thanks, buddy. I just have to find it.
Well, that's on you.
If you...
Caitlin's not here.
If you were Caitlin, where would you put my list? That's not true. Right now, John, my number... Control X. Right now, my number 1 is X. And my number 2 is Spine of Night. I'm going to bump everything down and put this at number 2.
Wow. Okay.
There you go. There's some DNA between Spine of Night and Mad God.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. This is my vibe this year, John. What do we got? Bring me more of this shit, whatever it is. Inject it into my veins.
I wouldn't hold your breath unless someone else, some other. So I looked it up. Phil Tippett's 70 years old. Unless you've got somebody else who's been hacking away for 30 years.
I can't wait to see what he makes when he's 100.
Do you think now that it's come out though, he's like, I've done it. I've said all of the things about buttholes I needed to say, and all right. No email this evening. Don't forget to check us out, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. When you do that, you're going to get a live stream of the show on video. John, people often tell us we're not as ugly as they thought we would be, and I find that's like the biggest compliment anyone's ever given me. So you can check the live stream out. We're on our Slack community. You can check that out. You can get back episodes of the show. You can get the classics feed, which drops on Mondays. You also get this show early release. You can get that Thursday evening. I would tell you a specific time, but Patreon seems to take random amounts of time to publish after I hit the button. So, I also didn't do this last week, so I don't know what we read and what we have. Let's see. What's today's date? 6/29.
29th.
When did we record last week, John? Give me a day. Last Thursday, right?
27th, 23rd.
Oh, I got it.
I think it was Thursday. Yeah.
24th.
First up, Whitney. What horror movie would you want to see remade as a stop-motion animation film?
Ooh.
What was I just saying? Oh, when we did, I was saying it about Rotoscope a couple weeks ago that I'd love to see Game of Thrones redone, so you could just not have to worry about budget and just do the scale right.
That would be cool. I mean, that would be cool.
It would be a lot of talking in claymation, which would be funny. Just a lot of like somebody sitting in a chair with a glass of wine.
Like Waking Life. I mean, that was like mostly people
true.
talking in Rotoscope, so it works.
I'm trying to think of what's a movie that was like cool conceptually, but didn't have the budget to execute the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is something you could do with stop motion animation?
It's funny because that's like out the window now, right? Like, you could pick some like. I don't know.
Sort of,
like
unless you are just working with a low budget, right? In which case, maybe you could do more.
Yeah,
because that's what.
There's a lot of.
That's where this excels.
A lot of sci-fi that almost like works better in Rotoscope because it's like there's like that layer of remove from reality.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and it allows you to establish a very interesting scope that in the past anyway you couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think any of the Nightmare films would be cool because you could really go strange places, even more so than they already did. Like, think about the third one.
I think
with no limits on the imagination.
I think I just want every movie to be remade like this.
Can we select D? All of the above.
It would also mean less movies.
I would like Steel Magnolias and stop at
yes. It would also mean less movies, which frankly I think I'm okay with. There's too many movies, John. We don't need this many movies. There's a new goddamn Marvel movie every week, and I could give a fuck about it.
Yeah, it's fair.
Fucking Marvel.
What if they did one in rotoscope though? What if they were like the next one?
Well,
This goes out to the news.
maybe you have my attention then. We'll see.
Yeah.
Next up, an interesting question for the group. Would Caitlin have liked this one?
Where did she land on Spine of Night? I feel like she didn't love it.
She was
didn't love
lower
it.
on the scale.
I feel like she would appreciate the artistry, but probably not like the movie.
I don't think she would have liked this very much.
Yeah.
She's got a butt thing, you know? No, I'm kidding.
Think about buttholes.
Is that Caitlin's like?
The rest of our SBGH are Ariel soliciting questions for us because she's our best hype man. Let's see. We have just 3 short questions. Well, 2 questions really. Which god do you wish was real? There's a lot of really cool Indian gods that would be cool to see, but saying a god is
you
real.
Just have one of them though.
But saying a god is real doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna see it, which is all I really want here. Like, right? Because no one's seen God and they still believe.
Because I was thinking about H.P. Lovecraft gods, but I don't know that I actually want them to be real because that would be a bad
Dude, are you kidding me? We could use, listen, if there's one thing the world could use right now, it's Cthulhu destroying everything.
Yeah, I'm like thinking American God style. You know what I mean? Like where you get into like egregores and things like that. Like like Santa is an egregore. Does that count? Can I do Santa? Because I would like more presents.
I don't know anything you just said. What does that mean? That was so smart sounding.
So egregores are like god level tulpas.
Okay, keep going down one. Rachel, explain this to me like I'm 5.
Okay, so tulpas are basically things that you create with your mind. Like you could manifest a creature and make it reality through like concentration and belief. There's like people, I think it comes from like Buddhist practice, like believe that they can create these things called tulpas. And then egregores are that, but like on a god level. So like American gods, those are like when it's like video games is a god, that's an egregore because it's like created out of this sort of mass energy of belief and faith. That's an egregore.
Wow.
Okay.
You're just on another level.
I feel very redeemed for not knowing what it is. So,
I think I said this.
You've worked it
still
off.
don't know what it is.
I think I said this recently. I think I said this recently on the show, but I'm super fascinated by biblically accurate representations of angels.
Yes, with like, all the eyeballs and the little wings.
Yeah, eyeballs and wings and shit. Yeah, it's just fascinating.
That'd be rad.
And so dumb, but also fascinating.
Yeah. I'm into it too.
You can see why most of the statues are the people angels, not like the eyeballs. Although it would be cooler. I might go to church if they had eyeball statues.
Yeah. You don't want to think of like the little eyeball monster from Big Trouble in Little China being like, right. I'm Jesus's dad.
I'm Jesus' dad. Last question. This is NAF2Z. This is Caitlin's buddy who always has very thoughtful questions, almost too thoughtful for this show. Does your work and or creative space tend to look dirty, cluttered, or is it more organized and clean, or a combination? I'm going to guess Schnars is always clean because you seem like a fastidious fellow.
Not as clean as I would like sometimes, but I do try. I like to have a clean workspace, yes.
I like to have a clean workspace, but I do not.
Yeah,
I'm a cluttery person.
Yeah,
so.
I have trouble getting to real creativity if my space is not clean, but it is often not clean. So you can see my my problem there.
The conundrum.
But cleaning it is such a great procrastination tool. You got to make the mess so that you have a reason to clean it.
I also I've never really, as an adult, had a lot of space. So my creative spaces are also my living spaces. So there's not even like I can't just have a room that only gets touched for creative stuff and gets like free of clutter.
Yeah, me neither.
So there you go.
John, do you have a third home that's just for creators?
Give him time.
That's a good idea.
Give him time.
Good idea.
What we need is another economic crisis to siphon more up to the 1%, and then I think he's on his way. To third home, so.
You can have a recording studio with a personal butler. You know,
dare to dream.
If I get to use your recording studio, I'll be your personal butler.
That's the trade-off.
Something to food for thought here. I mean, I guess that's it. What, Rachel and Ariel, what do you guys have going on over at the Zombie Gals?
What's going on, Ariel? We have our live show coming up next month that we're preparing for. We're doing
our
a
patrons.
midsummer. We're gonna do like, it's not watching the movie and talking about it. It's like that's the theme, which is becoming more and more appropriate every day. Like a little more Rachel with every passing day.
So when you say live show, is this internet live or people live?
Internet live.
Gotcha.
Yeah, internet live. I told you I live in a bubble.
Oh, that hey, Rachel was just or Ariel was just saying that as well. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What else we got going on? Anything? I mean,
by the time this episode comes out, let's see. Rachel and our friend Mars have been reviewing all of the Hellraiser movies on the Scream Queens, and that's that's been
goes off
funny
the rails
because
pretty quick. So.
Yeah, the longer they get into the series, sort of the more bonkers the conversations become. So I would recommend checking out the Stream Queens for that. Rachel and I are about to review Watcher, the new Chloe Okuno movie. So that'll be up.
Seen that one yet?
I think I just saw the poster on somewhere. I can't remember
Rachel,
where.
I'm rewatching Dawson's Creek right now. I don't have time for that.
No, but Caitlin sent us Watcher. It's because Micah Monroe's in it.
Yeah. And it's by the director of the Ratma segment from BHS 94.
Yeah.
I did like that one. I did like that one segment of that movie. Yeah. So
didn't we all?
thing going on right now is the Chattanooga Film Festival, and there's a bunch of coverage of that happening right now over at bloodygoodhorror.com, headed up by one Mr. John Shelton and our lovely crew of writers. So if you head over to the site, you can check some of that out. I've heard that the lineup is really great this year. Festivals aren't really my thing. I like other people to vet movies before I see them, but some people are into it. So check it out. Yeah, I need like 3-layer
virtual festival.
I need like a Brita filter of movie record. Like it's got to go through the charcoal a couple times before I'm like, all right, I'll watch this.
But then you still make us watch The Cellar. So is it really working?
We just,
wow.
Not always. Not always.
Well, it was nice knowing you guys. Thanks for having me.
Speaking of movie picks, though, John, exciting news. I think we're back to Buttholes next week.
That is the rumor.
Because we're going to, I believe, be reviewing Crimes
of the Future.
Crimes of the Future.
I just watched that the other night. That'll be an interesting one for you guys to talk about.
Can you confirm or deny butthole activity?
Oh, there's buttholes in the trailer all over the body. There's like body buttholes. I saw it.
Ooh.
There are ears all over a body.
Like ear buttholes?
It's an orifice. All right.
Yeah.
Like,
you ever seen
I want to unpack that Eric saw ears and was like, definitely.
With Cronenberg, I'm always thinking about Existence. Have you guys seen that one? Yeah. There's some butthole action in that movie. So that's next week, and presuming the rest of us don't get taken out with COVID, I guess we'll see.
Next week
I'll be back. I'm going to be stronger than ever. Double COVID strong. That's what we call it.
Double COVID. I don't think that's how that works, but I'll cross my fingers for you.
How many times do you have to get it before you get like the Spider-Man thing where you're like you get superpowers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh God!
All right, everybody.
That's
gonna do it for Mad God. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.